because it said stream preview.
There we go.
So are we live now?
We're live now.
Okay. We're live now. Welcome to Down the Alley. This is PMAC.
And Ted T. Esperides.
Thankfully, we only got about 10 minutes in. It's only our second or third time kind of going live here. We're rookies on this new system. We're trying to get better. It's been a leap year day. We'll get into that. But first things first, Old Southern Barbecue. We can go through this again.
Yeah.
It's a big year. It's a big year for barbecue. We talked about this probably 5 minutes ago. What's going on in the world of barbecue this year, Ted?
Yeah. This feels like deja vu. It is the year. It is the year of the ribs, and I don't know if that's a national thing, nationally recognized. I don't know if it's like the Chinese New Year where every year they have a different animal that they the year of I think it's the year of the tiger, the dragon, or something this year.
So are we eating like dragon ribs this year? Is that what's going down at OSB or what?
That's the thing. So it's year of the ribs.
Okay.
Like I was saying before, I know that brisket is like sort of the gold standard for barbecue joints, but like I'm more of a stickler about ribs, and I think I like ribs better, and like especially when they're done really well.
Yeah.
Old Southern Barbecue has great ribs, so if you're interested in going there, obviously check them out. But like just in general, I think I can get on board with a year of the ribs.
Yeah, no. There's very few things in this world. I know your dad would probably agree with you if he's listening. I know your mom is. Your dad is a massive rib guy, a harsh critic too. Critic. He lets if I'm making, I don't know, I've made him ribs a couple of times, and he'll give me the nod of approval when I do a good job, but he'll also let you know if you messed them up too.
Yep. No, I think I don't know. I feel like brisket has a little more flexibility. If you dry it out a little bit, you can kind of maybe make some.
I think Luke would disagree with my brother. He's a harsh. He'll rarely order brisket at a restaurant anymore. He's kind of over it. Unless it's like for sure a home run.
Just prepared to be disappointed. Yeah, just prepared to be disappointed, so he just doesn't even go down that road. That's fair. That's fair. So year of the ribs. And just speaking of barbecue, and I'm probably gonna have to go to Old Southern soon here, but because March is a sneaky good sports month. Maybe it's not sneaky, but I feel like September and like October gets most of the attention in the sports world because you got football, which is the king, right? And you got like baseball World Series, and then you have basketball and hockey sort of kicking off too. But March, you got, for me personally, college lacrosse. You're in kind of the meat of the schedule. You're getting conference matchups, like games that are starting to be a little bit more meaningful in college lacrosse, which is obviously my number one.
Sure.
Getting kind of in a playoff race for NHL and NBA. Like it's kind of getting to the point where teams are starting to become lottery picks, and like people are fighting for playoff spots, right?
And you haven't decided yet.
Yeah, they haven't decided yet. And then
know what the Wild are.
Yeah, I don't know. And then I don't know exactly on the NBA, but I know NHL like trade deadline comes at the end of March, so like there's that excitement.
Yeah,
I think it's March, last day of March. Then you have high school hockey tournament, which is obviously here in Minnesota a huge deal.
Sections have been electric.
Sections have been great. They don't live stream them. Like, well, some of them do, some of them don't. It's just a disservice to high school sports in general to not. I mean, that's a rant for a different day. But then you got March Madness. Again, not a huge basketball fan, but when you got 64 teams just going at it like single a limb in a tournament field,
and it's all day.
and it's all day. Like you can become a basketball fan for, a couple weeks a year,
for sure.
and just like something exciting is going to happen.
I know in the office it'll be on all day, all
Yeah.
month.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like you got, the 16 beats the 1 situation going on. You have buzzer beaters. You have the 11 seed that goes and makes the Final Four because they go on the run. Cinderella story. I think we talk about that on the podcast. I think that comes from March Madness. That's a March Madness thing. So, and then you have college hockey playoffs too, if you're into that. And I know the Frozen Four is technically in April, but the regionals and stuff are at the end of March too. So it's just like, all the sports that I love, I feel like are right now, the end of the winter sports and the beginning of the spring sports.
Yeah, what's better than well, not all, but a lot of lacrosse games, right? There's 100 lacrosse games on Saturday, every Saturday.
Yep.
What's better than mucking some old Southern barbecue on
It's
your
probably going to
couch
happen. It's going to happen.
or in your office with your I got 4 screens going right now with lacrosse and
Yep.
barbecue.
Yep. Yep.
Another recommendation: I'm going up to the Ralph for the first time this weekend. Going to watch a little college hockey, like we were talking about. I don't believe, to my knowledge, that Old Southern Barbecue's there. So, recommendation to the big man: let's get some Old Southern Barbecue at the Ralph. College hockey, barbecue, lethal combination. That's
That'd
my
be sweet.
recommendation for the week
There you go.
to our sponsor.
Yeah, I have not been up to Grand Forks. I've been to Fargo once. I know you go up there. It feels like regularly now with your new job.
Yeah,
You
I'm
might
up there like
have to
once
get
a month.
an apartment up there or something like that. But yeah, I think hey, I think the Ralph is, if you're a fan of hockey, you're a fan of college hockey, whether you like North Dakota or not, um, it's a place. It's a place you have to go watch a hockey game. It's kind of a bucket
Yeah,
list. Check it off the list. It's a sweet. It looks like a sweet facility. I mean, nicer than a lot of teams play in. So that'll be a cool experience. Um, I think we talked about it a little bit before.
like 10 minutes
We
ago.
like 10 minutes, roughly 10 minutes ago, when we were quote unquote live, but we were just in the practice room before
We
I
were just
clicked
warming up.
go live. Um, tonight's the Lucy episode.
Yeah, big shout out to Lucy. This is the Lucy episode. Leap year, leap day was a tough day in the PMAC household. I know DTA Nation. A lot of 36 families specifically know Lucy. Like you mentioned, like 10 minutes ago, she was a facility dog.
Facility dog.
Back when we had the facility. So basically, all the 36 families, met her, been around her. She was a special one, better than we deserved for sure. She was a facility dog. She came to practices. I know I dragged her to some PL practices. The kids loved her. Obviously, we loved her, and today we said goodbye to Lucy. So, Michael Jordan had his flu game. We are having our Lucy podcast game.
Lucy podcast.
So the Lucy
Yeah.
podcast tonight. Big shout out to her. She had a good run.
Yeah, yeah, and what a better you can't have a better Lucy episode than Section 5. Specifically, Lucy obviously was a girl, specifically on the girls' side. Section 5, I was reading through the notes here.
Yeah.
Section 5 is a really good section on the girls' side. And we've talked a lot about the whole Shakopee Eden Prairie getting moved into Section 6. That's been a huge hot topic on everybody.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that next week. But
yeah.
somebody else got moved, and I didn't realize this till I looked through here. Champlin Park has been moved into Section 5 on the girls' side. That is tragic. to say the least. You know, I feel like they've just been a dominant program. I don't know if they've gone to state a bunch of times, but they've been like right there every single year since we've started doing this. Um, and it used to be in section 7 and now have been moved into section 5. So, um, that's that's a tough section to get moved into.
Yeah, no, it's brutal. They've got an elite social media game. Am I
Yes.
correct
Nope,
on
you're
that?
right. You're right.
So
Yes.
their social media game is elite. You're right. They've been to state 4 times, three
Okay.
pre-COVID and once
Okay.
last year. It looks like, according to the
Sweet.
source.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I when you first glance at it, it might quote unquote suck, but I believe in this team. I don't think this
Yeah.
is the kiss of death for them. I don't. Sure, Benilde's had a couple of nice years, um, but things change. Things can
Yeah.
change even more so to private school. I feel like things can change overnight. You know, you might have a couple of good classes, great. Things can change overnight. So Champlin, I am staying bullish on this team. Their social media is great. There's obviously a lot of buy-in on the field and off the field. Um, so I does it stink for Champlin? Maybe, but I think it stinks for everybody else just as much.
That's a great point. I where I was going with that more so, you're right. I think it just made a tough section even tougher.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
but it seems like every year Champlin has one loss, and it's to Maple Grove in their
Oh,
conference,
yeah,
and then they don't see them they don't have to. It's like, hey, this is a tough matchup, but like we can use it as a way as a litmus test to kind of figure like what do we need to fix before we get into sections.
yeah,
Not to say that Andover isn't a tough program either. So like they're still in section 7, but now they're in the same section as Maple Grove. So they might potentially play them twice a year. I know they looks like they lost to Maple Grove last year. That was like their one game in the regular season that they lost. I'm going to pull up 22 as well, just real quick. But um, that's kind of the big news as far as the section. But, you know, I think starting at the top, the state champs, the Red Knights of Benilde, had them on the show. You know, 17-2 last year, unbelievable run, uh, an electric game against Lakeville South in the state semis, and then capped it off in the finals. And you know, against Edina, 2 1-goal wins. You know, they had some huge wins last year. They beat Eden Prairie, they beat Maple Grove, they beat Chan, they crushed Chan. They beat South and Edina. Um, you know, then but I don't know. They're just one of those teams. It's like it'd tell you you got to beat the champs if you want to get to state. If you're in this section, you got to get through the champs.
yeah. I think, yeah, rightfully so. All things considered, this is the number one team in the section. They're coming off a state championship. Their staff is in place. Their schedule, the program they built up to this point, rightfully so. Did they lose 3D1 players? They did. Not if I had to pick one that's going to be the biggest loss, it'd be their goalkeeper. Speaking
Yep.
for kind of Katie on this, right? She's the bullish on if you got your goalie back, especially if it's a good goalie. I think the
Yep.
goalie thing, losing their goalie, is going to sting. I think that's going to sting. They might have somebody coming up. We wouldn't
Yeah.
know because this goalie
Yeah.
played every single minute, for years. So they lose their goalie. They lose a few other, seniors from last year as well. D1 players, not to mention. However, they've got two. specifically two weapons that they bring back that I think is the reason they stay number one, that they're going to be number one in this section, and that they still have a chance, or they not still, they have a chance to go back to back here, and that's I'm going to butcher this name, but it's Maggie.
I think it's Graycheck.
Great check. Okay,
I
Maggie Gray
believe that's how you say it.
and Julia Evans. Uh, they're difference makers. They're studs.
Yeah.
They are her. They are her.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah.
go ahead.
Julia headed 97 points last year, 131 draw control, headed to Marquette, Division I Marquette. Maggie Graycheck, 116 points. That's just unbelievable. I know we've talked about her in the past. It looks like potentially uncommitted at this point. So I don't know if that's by choice, if that's not by choice. I don't know her personally. But if you're a college coach,
I'd be
the
calling.
leading scorer in the state on the state
I'd be calling.
champion Red Knights, that might be someone to look at.
I'd be calling. I'd be emailing. I might just show up unannounced on the doorstep of this one.
Obviously an elite level player. And then, they got a couple other college commits, Carson
It's
Elliott,
up and
Maddie
down, up and down the.
Hallstas. Yeah. I mean, so you're right. You lose 3 Division I caliber players from your roster, but you get 5, 3 Division I players still on the roster, and then 2 that are D2, D3 caliber. So it's like, it's not like they lost everybody. It seems to me like it's a reload situation. And they got a great coaching staff and they're organized. And, another thing too is now that whole group has been through tough, like intense games, like playoff pressure, high pressure games.
They got the
And
experience.
it's like they know how to win now. Like they can revert and kind of dig back into oh, we've been here before. We felt this. Hey, we're down a couple goals. Or we know what it takes to win. And that doesn't, that's something that might not show up on a stat sheet, but it's there. It's a phenomenon. Like there's a reason why these blue blood programs are in state every single year, and it seems like it's the same group of teams, and it's part of that big game experience.
Could not have said that better. This is kind of like off the script, but like Julia and Maggie, for Mrs. Lacrosse, they would be on the list for me, kind of a preseason watch list, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, those are 2 legitimate choices. I know I'm not chirping players. I am chirping parents. Some parents, maybe in discords and other things, say teams have 3 options in one position. This is legitimate. They have 2 offensive players that could win Mrs. Lacrosse legitimately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other program parents that may say that in discords and things, you're crazy. But Maggie and Julia, BSM offense, you've got 2 that you could make an argument for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And that brings us to, and we talked about them a little bit, Maple Grove, 15-1 last year. They lost in the section final 6-4 to BSM. So that game could have gone either way. They've been to state a bunch of times, 5 times pre-COVID, and then in 2021 as well. Big, strong athletic department, public school, a lot of athletes. They've had a great lacrosse program for years. It looks like they also lost their goalie to Division II Dominican. Her name is Emma Crater. Had some pretty sweet numbers last year. But they're gonna have to figure that out as well, just like Benilde.
One
And they
thing on
lost.
Maple Grove goalies, again, scorekeepers and people entering. I don't know who's entering this. I don't know how accurate it is, but they had one, two, three, four. They had 5 goalies log time, according to Lax Hub, at goalie. So I don't know if they were, preparing for this loss, this graduation, if they were taking a peek at what was in the pipeline, if they're giving people opportunities. Yeah, I don't know what the situation is,
Interesting.
but it,
Yeah,
it
that's a
looks
lot.
like, yeah, I haven't seen, I don't know if there's injuries. I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever personally seen that many goalies get time on a varsity step 5. That's a lot. That's a lot. So
Yeah.
maybe they were starting to prepare for this graduation, and maybe they have multiple options, going into the
Yeah.
season. I'm not
Maybe,
sure. I'm
maybe,
not
yeah.
sure.
Um, and so yeah, they lose their goalie, but it seems like there might be some candidates to choose from. Ella Olson, 66 points last year, graduated. Leah Muscatello, that's a great name, by the way. 45 points, headed to Mount Olive, is there now. So they lost a couple kind of college level caliber players, but they do have, they have some key contributors coming back.
And
Sosi
it looks like it
Van,
was a young core coming back.
yeah, a 25 and 26. So Sosi, is it Van Wyck or Van Wyck? 52 points. Riley Dunn, 41 points. Um, it kind of seems, looking at this,
I think they're back. I think they're
they,
if they figure out the goalie, and maybe it's early, they're testing a couple. I think this team's back, all the way
yeah,
back.
yeah. So Ella Olson graduated. She had 66 points, but number 2, 3, 4, 5 are all back, and they had 52, 45, 41, 29. So it's not like we give the ball to one player and they're just going to go to the rack every single time and everything's running through them. It seems like it's a pretty balanced attack. Maybe not a team built on offense. I think they had a lot of low scoring games last year, but um, they get most of their offense back. Actually, no, I'm wrong about that. They were crushing teams last year. They just played a really low scoring game, 2 low scoring games in sections. 8-7 win against Wayzata and a 4-6 loss to Benilde. So sections were defensive games, but other than
Sure,
that, they were putting up goals,
yeah,
and they were undefeated heading into the section final last year. So
that's
PMAC,
wild.
I think you're right. They might be kind of laying in the weeds here as like a top 5 caliber ish program. Which not a lot of, like, I don't hear a ton about girls lacrosse outside of what we talk about internally, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about Maple Grove girls right now, and
I don't.
they're
I
as good
wouldn't.
as it gets.
I I I think because their core is young, I think they're a year away from winning the section. I just think Benilde is 2 players too good right now. I think Maple Grove is a year away from winning the section. If I'm making a bet or a projection, but I also don't think with this balanced offense, if they have more depth, more options on offense, if they're spinning the ball and attacking from everywhere, I this could be an upset alert being called in on leap day in February before we even practice. Um,
Yeah.
like, I don't think, I think they're a close number 2. And in any other section, maybe they're a number 1. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where I'm at. I think this team's all the way back. I think they're maybe a year away, if not sooner, from winning this section.
Yeah.
Just at first
And
glance here.
no, yeah, no, I don't think you're wrong. You're selling me hard on them. I don't, maybe you're trying to get me to put them number 1 on the rankings, then you're gonna be like, oh yeah, Maple Grove 3, 4, whatever, and you're gonna trick me into,
Just sandbagging.
yeah, sandbagging a little bit. that brings us to someone we talked about a little bit earlier at the beginning. Champlin Park, new to Section 5. Welcome to Section 5. A state
I like the
tournament.
sources right up here. Congrats to Champlin Park on your Section 7 championship in 2023. Your prize, you get to slide into Section 5 and battle it out with the state champ.
Yeah, and Maple Grove. Like your conference
and Maple
foe,
Grove.
your conference rival, and also really good team. Yeah, so I think it's great. I think a team like Champlin Park, they want to be playing the best teams, and this puts them in a not that they couldn't win state when they were in Section 7, but I think when you're in a really tough section and you get through, sometimes like the state games could even be like easier than your section. Like it kind of turns into this weird,
Sometimes.
like you're battle tested and you're just like, whoa, like, we got through that. Like more of like a confidence builder of we got through the section, we have a legitimate chance to win the state tournament if we can get through this. So it's kind of like this mental game. But they're losing 5 seniors, but only one that had significant production. So it sounds like, and as I'm looking at this, so Megan
This is
Peters.
another team. This is another team in the section that is
Yeah.
all the way back. And the biggest thing, if I'm looking at all 3 of them, the difference on this, they've got 2, not 2024s, not 2025s. They have 2 2026s. One that put up significant points. That would be
Yeah.
as a freshman.
Yep.
And another standing between the pipes put up as a freshman very extremely respectable stats. I think that's only going to go up. This is a team. They have the goalie question mark answered, and they bring everybody back.
Yeah.
I think this is I don't know. I'm getting more and more fired up about this team or this section as we go through each team.
Yeah. Yeah. No, as I was looking at it, kind of, preparing for this podcast and kind of getting through the notes, I was like, whoa, like Section 5 girls is a tournament you're going to want to tune into if you're a fan of high school lacrosse. But yeah, Annabelle Johnson comes back, senior, 82 points last year, 78 draw control, 58 caused turnovers, 134 ground balls. Like just, so this is going to date me, but back when I was like 9 or 10 years old, there was a guy that played for the Pittsburgh Steelers named Cordell Stewart. And he played every position. Like in college, he was the starting quarterback, but he also played D-back, punt returner. He even punted sometimes. So they called him
the quarterback.
He was the starting quarterback and ended up going to the NFL as a quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Played significant years as a quarterback in the like late 90s, early 2000s. He was kind of like a running gun, kind of like a Lamar Jackson type quarterback.
Yeah.
But Cordell Stewart, and his nickname was Slash because on his positions, he just was up like QB slash wide receiver slash tight end slash like everything. So,
No way.
Annabelle Johnson, your nickname, if we may, is Slash because you're dominating in every statistical category that is even only thing you haven't done yet is go between the pipes and make a few saves. So maybe that you can add that to your resume this year. But
I don't think she's going to have to.
No, I don't think so. But you're right. A good group of seniors and then a couple looks like twin sisters, Reese Hagenbart, Paige Hagenbart, the 26s. One's a goalie, one's an attack. They got a nice core coming back. And if I know on the boys' side, the Northwest Suburban Conference split east and west or north and south or something. So those teams have been able to schedule more out of conference games. I would assume the same would happen for the girls. I don't know why it would be for the boys and not the girls. So if that's the case, potentially Champlin Park could potentially get some more out of conference games that they might match up a little bit better. Then
that would help them come section time.
Yeah. It seems like some of these conference games that they had last year, They were far superior to their competition. So, and I would say the same for Maple Grove as well. So we'll see kind of what schedules look like as they come out here.
Over to Wyzetta,
Yeah.
they get a DTA Coaches Summit bump. Shout out
Yep.
to, I believe, the majority, if not their entire staff, came out to the Coaches Summit.
Yep.
Thank you to the staff for coming out. I hope y'all found it, valuable. And I met them very briefly. I know Katie met them much more and got to talk with them, and that was super cool. I know she really enjoyed meeting them, and like specifically shouted out Wyzetta to me, after the event. So
Yep. Yep.
shout out to the Wyzetta staff. They are obviously a dedicated staff and well prepared and fired up for this 2024 season.
Yeah. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Maybe it's not a limb. This has to be the best 4 seed in a section by far. As far as like just teams that are sitting in a 4 spot,
Yeah.
A lot of times we kind of have to like, it's a little bit of like like a long shot, or it's like, all right, maybe, but like Wayzata, even as like right now, like kind of on this list as quote unquote a 4, we may not rank them 4. We don't know
You
yet.
never know. Yeah, that's what just our
That's what this,
sources.
yeah. They're an interesting team. I'm looking at their schedule. They started the year 5-0 with a 3-goal win on Saturday, April 22nd against Champlain Park. So that's a big win.
Big.
This is last year. Yep. Then they lost by 3 to Blake, by 1 to Eden Prairie, by 5 to Minnetonka, by 6 to Benilde, by 1 to Hopkins. So they lost 5 in a row. And that's a meat grinder schedule
Yeah, come
situation
on.
right there.
Come on.
Blake, EP, Tonka, Benilde, Hopkins. And we're going to talk about Hopkins in a minute. Then they played Armstrong, which has got a great girls team, and they won by 5. Then they lost to Edina, lost to Andover. First round of sections beat Hopkins, so they get them back.
They go
in
2-1
sections,
against Hopkins.
and then they lose to Maple Grove by 1. So they had a bunch of games that were 1 or 2 goal losses. I mean, a 7-8 record might not look like, oh, they're like some amazing team, but like they're a couple goals away from being, 10-6 or 10-5 or whatever. You know what I mean?
And
Like
this is a
it's
hard schedule. Like this is a
yeah,
schedule that you can tip the cap. They're not like a loss to Edina, a loss to Andover, a 1-goal loss to Maple Grove. That was in sections, but like Eden Prairie in the regular season, a 1-goal loss. Like they're testing themselves.
yeah. Yeah, and so like I guess that kind of just brings me back to like my original point of like, sure, you can put them in the 4 spot based on record and stats and all that kind of stuff, but like that might not be super indicative of like where they are as a program.
Well, look at last year. They were the 4 seed playing the 1 seed Maple Grove, and it was a 1-goal game. Like
Yeah.
some 4-1, section games or blowouts. They had Maple Grove sweat
Yeah.
until the end,
Yeah.
clearly.
Yeah. And so they lost 7 seniors, but it looks like only one like that was like a super like producing at a super high level. This Katie Sikorsky she's at Akron now, but they get Ainsley Owens back, who's going to Eastern Michigan Division 1. Evie Marks had 25 points last year. They get their goalie back. Headed to University of Colorado Springs. Her name's Delaney. It's either Ganas or Nos. Shyla Sanders. So a couple good 24s and 25s upperclassmen that were around last year, and some of the like we're close, but we just can't get over the hump. They get all those people back. This and another team that it's like the more you talk about them, the more I'm like, yeah, I think I'm on the bandwagon now. It's looking good.
and they're getting a DTA coaches summit bump because
Yeah.
they're clearly doubling down this year as a staff.
Yeah.
So, um, however, not to skip over Wyzetta or like cut them short, but we get to Hopkins, which I'm kind of learning about this. Again, I did not do my homework today. I'm coming in blind. Um, Now that I'm just hearing about Hopkins against Wyzetta, I'm interested to learn more about Hopkins. They were the 5 seed last year. They they mucked it up against Wyzetta. It sounds like. What are they
Yep.
looking like this year?
Yeah, I mean 7-7 last year, close games. They beat Buffalo, they beat Moorhead, they beat Wyzetta, and then they ended up losing to Wyzetta. Excuse me. In sections. To me, this looks like a situation of maybe there's some high end talent on the team, but maybe not quite the depth that some of these other teams in the section have. But it does look like they get a nice core of seniors that are coming back this year, that were on the team last year. Obviously, Tori Katzenmeyer, Lindsay Schuchard, Lauren Olson, goalie, another goalie coming back, and Avery Shaw. It's all 24s. And again, maybe upset potential in the section. I don't know if I'm ready to say they're going to have the depth to win the section, but like not really a team I would want, like if this pans out kind of how this is laid out, and let's say Benilde's the 1 and Wayzata and Hopkins are the 4-5. Well, Benilde's playing Wayzata or Hopkins in the semis at that, assuming they win, that 1-4 matchup. Like neither of these teams are a team I would be excited about dealing with in a semifinal of a
No
section.
thanks.
Like it's just kind of like they have nothing to lose. Playing with house money, as we like to say.
Yeah. Oh
They
yeah.
have enough talent to steal one from you. So yeah, I like Hopkins. I think they're properly placed here in like the 5 spot. But like I think it says right here, in the write up, section 5 is very deep. And like they might be higher in other sections, but section 5 is just a really tough section. But
For sure.
if you would have told me before looking at this, like Hopkins will be ahead of Blake, Breck, Armstrong, like I feel like I would have been like, no way. And now you look at it, you're like, wow, no, they're a good program.
Well, speaking of Blake, they're the next team on this list. I guess first off, good record last year, 9-6. They schedule well. They schedule everybody that they can. This is a team. Uh, they've won state championships. They go to state regularly. A couple years ago, I was super high on. They had a stud go to, is it Dartmouth for hockey and lacrosse?
Yeah.
You
Yep.
remember who I'm talking about? I can't think of her name at the moment.
I'll pull it up.
But Blake here, a school that has history, definitely on the girls' side, on the boys' side as well. They've been in a lacrosse school. I'm interested to see. They lost or they graduated a good amount. They've got pieces coming back. My gut tells me this is a team. That you can't ever really count out, especially
Yeah.
on the girls' side. Um, but I think it's going to be a tougher year. But it looks like they've got a stud here. Who's their stud?
Yeah,
Um,
Cynthia Lyman, I
yes,
think younger sister of there was a Lyman a few years ago that was pretty good too, or real not pretty good, really good.
yeah.
So it must be related somehow. Yeah, no, they do get a lot back. I think, and to answer your question, were you thinking of Aaron Lee or
I may
Ellie
have been.
Morris? Aaron Lee, I think 87 points in 2021.
That must have been her. Yeah, I think she's
Yeah,
about
yeah,
my sister's age. Yeah,
yeah, yep, yep. Um, Yeah, no, they get some players back. They lose some players. It looks like here they're losing their 2nd through 6th point scorer and their goalie. So, um, though they lost a goalie, but it does look like they have a goalie coming back as well. So maybe there was like kind of a split time situation. So
Sure.
that could be beneficial. Um, Not to like revel in the past here, but I do want to shout this out because it's great
Yeah.
information
Oh,
from
man,
the source.
it's crazy.
State tournament appearances: 07, 08, 09, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. They won state. So they went for, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Well,
7, 12 times in a row, or yeah, 12 times. They won it in 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, which is, they got to have the most.
either them or
Maybe
EP.
EP. And then, also, again, the source digging deep for information. They won the 1999 North Central Schoolgirls Lacrosse Association. So, they have been a winning program for a very long time. And I think that hammers home your point of like, how can you really, you can't really ever count them out. It's just like, it's kind of like,
They're a blue blood of all blue
they're a blue
bloods.
blood,
You know what
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, and so they're gonna have to solve, losing some key players.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I think they're an interesting one. Yeah, I think their coach was it last year, or the year before? I think their coach and Eden Prairie's coach got inducted into the Coaches Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
It
you know,
2 teams that have just been kind
or
of
their former
around doing it.
coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, an absolute wagon. Um, Over to the boys' side. Before we get to the boys' side, I know in our first kind of warm up episode that wasn't recorded, we wanted to shout out, and I had not listened to it because I know it was released today, and obviously was dealing with some off the pod, off the field things today. There was a podcast that came out, one of our former players, big shout outs. Ted, what do you have on that?
Yeah, yeah, the In the Crease podcast, I got a text from a former player this morning telling me he was on a podcast, sent me the link. But this podcast, In the Crease, a couple of guys from, I believe they're from Virginia, Northern Virginia area. I believe had sons that both played Division II lacrosse at some point, and they have a podcast similar to ours, but they follow Division II lacrosse, men's lacrosse. So, Vincent Burkhart was on their show, kind of telling his story. Really appreciate the kind words. I did message the In the Crease podcast and thank them as well, but um, they just gave us a shout out. They said they enjoyed listening, and I really enjoyed their episode. That was the first one I had listened to. And so, I'm going to be tuning into those guys. And if you're somebody who is interested in following Division II lacrosse, maybe you have a kid playing or going to play or have played, which is pretty common here in Minnesota. They do a really good job of covering it, and I know that it's a little bit underserved, so they kind of fill that void, and definitely go check them out.
Yeah, no, shout out to them. I think Minnesota, right? They're our top players across the state, have done really well, right, at the Division II level. Top players at 36 have gone on, and we've got a few, currently just dominating. If you go, Vincent himself, he's dominating between the pipes. We've got Dylan Kendrick over at Lewis. You sent me his face-off stats the other
Yeah,
day. I was like, "Are you?" Wow, it's just like, what's going on? So shout out to Kendrick, Vincent, Holcomb. He's breaking records, or working up the leaderboard for Mesa
yeah,
all time.
yep.
He's an all-time 36, all-time Chan player. Um, we've got guys committed. Right now, headed to D2. I'm sure there's plenty of players that we're
Yeah,
missing, but
couple
D,
couple Lakers too playing Division II. You got Mickett and Simonson doing well at Maryville.
yeah, they're
And then
mucking it up at Maryville right now.
and then Eli Herman is at Mars Hill.
Kahlberg at
At
Rockhurst.
Rockhurst, yep. Former Laker Parker Hill is at Quincy.
Yep.
Is Brunsvold's brother still at Rockhurst
I believe
as
he is.
well?
Yes.
Yeah, so that we got
Tonka guy.
a lot of Minnesota kids in Division
And
II
those are just like a
lacrosse.
few that we are personally connected with. There's obviously a lot
A
more that are.
bunch more,
Yeah.
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 And so yeah, go check out their show In the Crease. They do a good job, and yeah, again, thank you for the shout out.
Over to the boys. Section 5. This has been a section, obviously, if you pay any attention to Minnesota lacrosse, this is a section that Benilde has been dominating for a while now. However, there are other very, very, very good teams in this section, teams that are
Yep.
improving even, and that are going to start nipping at their heels, I think, as soon as this year. However, you got to start at the top. The Scarlet Knights, they've won the last 6 section titles. They have, post COVID, have won a couple of state championships already. They've been in this, state championship games pre-COVID, with a couple of titles pre-COVID as well. But they've had consistent success over the last however many years. I think Section 5 starts with the Scarlet Knights.
Yeah, yep, it really does. Like you said, they've won the last 6 Section 5 titles. 18-1 last year, only lost in the state semis to Prior Lake in an absolute battle of the game. They had a 3-goal wins against St. Thomas Academy and Maple Grove in the section final, but all their other games were by 6+. I mean, they were just dominant. When you look at the stat sheets, they were just dominant. I think, if just because I know some of the people involved in that program personally, and I've talked to them, I think they like not only did they not accomplish their goal of winning the state championship game, it was at the hands of Prior Lake, which has become sort of a rivalry situation because you guys meet in the state tournament every single year. It's just like 2 of the best programs. And I think you take a team that's already loaded on paper and give them a chip on their shoulder. I think that's going to be it's going to be look out for Minnesota lacrosse. I think they're going to maybe have something to prove this year, which is hard to say. The Red Knights have something to prove, right? After all the success, but I think they do. I think this group of players, they have a ring because they won it a couple years ago, but how many of them were like contributors on that varsity team 3 years ago, 2 years ago? Some of them were, some of them weren't. So, I mean, they have a great senior class, probably one of the best senior classes across the board in the state. Just a class that kind of lacks depth across the state. They have a bunch of the top guys. Gus Bell, it starts with him, absolute machine. He's been on the podcast. Sky Rolled, who didn't play last year with an ACL, but had 52 points as a sophomore in 2022. Their starting lineup of defense, Murphy, Connor, Bourget, along with their goalie Esco, all 2024. So a experienced senior group on D. They got some young guys coming in that are really good. I watched some tape on them. They really, if I had to say there's one question mark, there's only one question mark, and it probably isn't even a question mark because I don't know their whole roster, is faceoff.
Yeah.
It's the only thing where I'm like, there isn't a guy who was dominant last year that's coming.
There's not a name on the list for you to just say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, yeah, there's not. I mean, and they if I had to guess, they've got a 26 or a 25 or a freshman or something that they got in, and they're going to be fine. But that was really the only thing that I was like, okay, that might be the one spot. And like this Dylan Parker guy, you don't really hear much about him, and he had 56 points last year, which is
He's one of
like,
their attackmen, right?
yep, number 34, I think he is.
Yeah.
And so like it just kind of doesn't end there with them as far as like the talent on their roster.
Yeah, I think I guess my opinion or when I look at this team roster, right, I think it starts, which might be crazy. I don't know. Tell me if I'm crazy, but it kind of starts with the defense, right?
Yeah, it does.
When a fan might look at this, oh, they put up all these points. But when I look at this roster, it actually starts with the defense. You got your D1 goalie back.
Yeah.
You've got a really good backup goalie. Sorry. The word for me about their defense is depth. So you've got a D1 goalie that's going to start. However, if something happens or goes wrong or whatever, you've got a backup goalie who's extremely good.
Yeah.
You look at their polls. They you've got sure your returning D that are penciled in. I think you've got just what I'm hearing. You've got 2 or 3 polls that are starting to get a little hungry. They haven't been fed in a while, and then
Yeah.
and they want some PT. So if your big 3, if you want to call it, polls start to get lazy, maybe start showing up slumpish to practice, you've got some hungry dogs right behind them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then for me, once you get to the offensive side of things after this crazy defensive depth, um, again, your average fan, is looking at Gus Bell, right? You got the Blake staff pun, just absolutely right, just loving Gus Bell, Gus Bell, Gus Bell, and do not get me wrong, Gus Bell is my pick, right? On the girls, I gave some options. On the boys, Gus Bell is my Mr. Lacrosse pick preseason. I and maybe people maybe he doesn't want that because I did that last year with a player and that didn't go well. So Gus Bell, maybe don't listen. Maybe I'm a jinx. I don't know. But Gus Bell, in my opinion, he is him. As I said with a couple of Benil gals, with
Yeah.
her. I think Gus Bell is him. However, the average fan is gonna stop at Gus Bell. You got to watch out for Skyrolled. And I know no one got to see him last year. You got to go back to the memory bank, and I've got a memory bank from 2 years ago because I lost 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
my memory is still clear when Sky Rolled was on the field. Sky Rolled, yeah, Gus Bell's the big shot, the big player, the big midi, the jump shot, the this, then Gus Bell's Gus Bell. Sky Rolled, though, he's going to go 45 and 45. Gus Bell's going to have he's going to have 90 goals this year.
Yeah.
Gus Bell is going to still have 90 points, and he's going to have about 45 assists to Gus Bell.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
watch out for Sky Rolled. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Hey, coaches, write his name down now if you got him on the schedule. This is free content. I'm giving content away. I'm giving scouting away.
Yeah.
Sky Rolled, write his name down.
It is. That's a good point. And I mean, obviously, I put him on here, but the fact that a Utah commit or signee at this point is not being talked about really is fascinating to me. We have that recency bias a little bit, and you're right about the depth. I know that talking short stick D mids is not like the most exciting thing to talk about on a podcast, but I think
talk about essential workers. Short stick D mids are essential workers.
So it's one of the Johnson Nixon brothers. I think it's Rafi.
You talking about presidents right now?
No, they have Judah Johnson Nixon and Raphael Johnson Nixon, 2 brothers on Benilde. Absolute units, just athletes and great players. One of them's a pole. I think one of those depth poles that maybe you said getting hungry, might be pushing the starters, but one of them plays short stick. And he's, he doesn't even need a pole. Like, I'll just cover you one-on-one with a short stick and not have an issue. And so
Maybe
he's
they'll
really
move a
good.
couple of their depth pulls to short stick D mid. There's a
That
coaching
that
tip to the
that
staff. Not that they need it.
yeah, that could. They should move Gus to short stick D mid.
Gospel.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
yeah, that's a good plan.
Move Sky Roll to D mid too.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, just clear the ball, give it to your attack, and get off the field. All right, automatic red light when you cross the 50. They do have a couple young guys too. Brady Marcus, he got a little bit of time. Really good player from Maple Grove, actually, that came over. He started at Maple Grove as an 8th grader and then transferred to Benilde, or not transferred. I guess he just went to Benilde because he as a 9th grader. And last year they had Kaio, right? The last couple of years they've had Kaio. So, he's kind of sitting behind a senior, but I expect him, to play a pretty large role this year and kind of be the next guy up. He's only a sophomore. So, I think, see someone to watch. And then Jack Anderson as well. Really athletic midfielder. Didn't get a ton of time last year he's a 25. So as a sophomore last year, again, they just were so loaded with depth that, you just don't get on the field as a sophomore and freshman usually. Kind of last thing before we move on. I love that their first game is against Hudson, the state
I'm
champs in
jealous.
2023 state champs for Wisconsin. That's just like kind of a fun game to kind of kick off the year. And I
Hudson's
think,
playing like a handful of
yeah,
Minnesota teams, and I'm jealous that one of them's not Prior Lake. I wish
yeah,
just
yeah,
a
no,
fun
for
game.
sure.
It's a different matchup. Like,
Yeah, yep,
um, so whoever's listening, if a Hudson person's listening, let's get
yeah,
PL Hudson
for
on
sure.
the schedule for 2025 because I think that's cool. It's fun.
Yeah. Um, Kind of moving on now. We talked about Benilde a lot for good reason. They're great, but like on the girls' side, a team that's been, right there, if not there, is Maple Grove. Last year the last 2 years specifically, they've given Benilde fits, and it has not been easy for BSM to get through. It's been a little bit more work than maybe they thought they were getting into. And I don't know. What are your thoughts on Maple Grove?
Maple Grove. Where do I start? Where do I go with this? Maple Grove. They are a city of turf. Like the facilities in
Yeah,
Maple Grove. I think we. Well, I know we have Maple Grove is a fan of DT. They are part of DTA Nation. They're coaches. Huge fans of the pod. We are huge fans of them. We like what they're doing. The head coach came on last year. Great interview. If you're a Maple
yeah,
Grove fan, go back listen to Coach Fickens' episode. That was an all timer, one of our best ones in my opinion. Of all time, really good interview. I've talked to their assistants, kind of leading up to this podcast. They love the pod. They're fired up about the upcoming season. Kind of year 2 of this new staff, and kind of bringing everybody back. So this is obviously a huge, massive athletic department. City, growing city. They've got athletes everywhere. They have facilities for days. I am jealous of the turf that
yeah,
they get to work with. So they have no excuse, right? They have no excuse to not beat Benilde, right? You've got the turf, the facilities, the athletic department to beat Benilde, and to become. They're not a blue blood, right? They haven't been there and done it yet, but they have the infrastructure
yeah,
to do the thing, to build the program, and to go on a run. And in my opinion, they have no excuse. It's time. It's time to do the thing, Maple Grove. And I think to get to the players, I think it starts and it not ends, but it starts with Ricky Peterson.
yeah,
Um, he's a guy. I was talking to their I've talked to coaches not at Maple Grove and at Maple Grove. This guy's a dude.
Yeah, he is. I'll be honest, when people were kind of talking about him, I didn't know if I quite believed it at first. And then as I've dug in, kind of going through my prep lacrosse stuff, I watched tape and you're right. It's just an elite level player. 78 points last year as a sophomore. Um, like
As
he
a
can just
sophomore.
as a sophomore, he can go righty, he can go
Is he committed
lefty.
yet?
Yeah, Monmouth, I believe.
You're right. You're right. It is Monmouth. It is
Um,
Monmouth.
yeah,
Great. Like, right. People, when you're going down, for like looking at where people are committed to, I
yeah.
know Monmouth isn't like maybe a sexy place at first glance to commit to. However, if you go to Monmouth, I've been to Monmouth. Um, Monmouth is a
Jersey
sweet
Sh
place.
Jersey Shore, right?
Yeah, they've got it's
It
under the radar. They've got a good setup, and I support the commitment by Ricky P. Um, it's yeah, Monmouth is a good place, and I think he's going to enjoy his 4 years there.
is
Did you freeze? Are you good?
I thought you froze,
I don't think
but
looking at the
it's
YouTube, you
prob
froze. I'm looking at
okay.
at the YouTube kind of
Alright,
backtrack here.
alright.
I think
Um,
you froze, but I think you're
you
back.
froze on yeah, you froze on me, but we're back.
We're
I'm sure
back.
you had a great point. Are you, Monmouth, Jersey Shore, correct?
Yeah. So I kind of went on the rant. You kind of
Yeah,
missed it,
all
but
good. That's alright.
they've got a good setup, and
Yeah,
to Ricky P, I support it. I support
yeah.
that commitment, and I free
Little
publicity for Monmouth. They were not right. They were kind of a newer school or newer program. When I was in college, so we played them and whatever. But they've been around. They're not new anymore. They've
Yeah,
been around for 10 plus years now. And I actually watched their game against NGIT maybe the other night, and
yeah,
so I free publicity for them. Um, Minnesota guys, if you're looking to go D1, a good option. Um, yeah, and I think I think Ricky P is going to enjoy his time at Monmouth. I think it's a
yeah,
good situation.
and, I so obviously I do my write-ups on these players, I have to kinda dive into film and whatever. Free sneak peek if you're not a subscriber, something that's gonna be coming out with the 2025 attackman, but Ricky Peterson, there might not be anyone in the state that's better at turning the corner from X than him. The dude is just he is just a power dodger, and righty or lefty, he just gets top side and he turns a corner and buries.
Free
Um,
scout, free scout.
yeah,
We're
and
just giving scouts away tonight.
yeah, I don't even know if the scout matters in this case. It's just all right, hopefully, yeah, hopefully you can turn him back or whatever. But no, really impressive player. Um, and not, I mean, kind of far behind, but not, I mean, still a respectable kind of next guy that they get back. Landon Bakke, 42 points last year. So, he's got some help on the offensive end. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, it seems like there's enough coming back to I don't know, to have a good squad again. They get two of their returning D poles back. Uh, somebody that specifically was shouted out to me, or a couple people have mentioned, is Jackson Kuznick. He had 63 ground balls. I believe he's a short stick D mid, and he's like a notable player on their team. And I think he's a really good hockey player too.
Hey,
And
like I said on the last team preview, short stick D mids
they
are
matter.
essential workers.
Yes, they're
They're
essential workers.
essential. We need them.
Yeah,
You need them.
and who knows? Maybe this Jackson Kuznick or Kuznick, maybe he'll get more offensive time this year, because they did lose Scanlon and Brendan last year, number 2 and number 3 scorers. So they're gonna have to solve that. They also lost their goalie to graduation, who was the starter since 2021. So, someone who there was stability there between the pipes, and now they're gonna have. I don't know who they have coming up. Their other backup was a senior too, so they're probably going with a young guy.
Um, I think Maple Grove is there a question mark goalie between the pipes? Is that kind of
I think their goalie is going to be, for me, again, they might have the greatest goalie on earth that I don't know about.
yeah?
From what the information that I have, I don't see or know of who is going to replace their goalie. And so that would be the question mark that I would have. It didn't look like they had like a dedicated faceoff guy either, kind of like Benilde. It just kind of seemed like they threw somebody out there, and it was got a handful of different guys. Not the end of the world, as we know. But it's definitely, it can be a thing, right? So a couple maybe question marks, but a lot returning as well.
On to the next team on this list, Wayzata. They were the 4 seed last year. However, I like that you put them third because, again, with this coaches summit and some conversations as of late, Wayzata seems to be a team that continues to come up in conversation. A team that not that I haven't heard. Obviously, I know where Wayzata is. I love to dine in Wayzata. Some great places to eat in
Yeah,
Wayzata. So d- don't get this confused. I know Wayzata. However, I they haven't come up in lacrosse conversation much, at least in my world, until this offseason.
yeah,
This offseason, Wayzata, again, different coaches from different corners continue to bring up the Trojans. Um, they could be the most under the radar team coming into 2024. And when you get a closer look, when you look under the weeds, look under the hood, you can start to see why.
yeah. I agree with you. I think a team that was kind of a mainstay for a while there at state back when they were in Section 8. They seem to be sort of the perennial Section 8 team for a while there. It got moved into Section 5 with Maple Grove a few years ago. Um, and they kind of dropped off out of relevance a little bit, like you said, but they were 8-7 in 2022, but they won 5 of their last 7 games, improved to 10-5 last year. Um, and it kind of, as I looked at it, they've sort of just rolled out with the young guys. I think they literally just played their freshmen and just said, we're gonna just go all in on this group. And now that group, they were freshmen in 22. Now those guys are juniors. And they have a couple 24s as well. So, it was a freshman sophomore group in 22, now junior senior group. So on defense, they have Will Schneider headed to Richmond next year. So he's a D1 caliber player.
Great brand. Like I
Yep.
love the
Yep.
Spiders.
Yep. Great
It's just
brand.
when I was picking my schools, or sorry, yeah, well, my schools, or like my school at the Division One level, Richmond is such a cool brand. I know nothing about the school, or the area or whatever where Richmond is, but the brand, like the Spiders, that's just a sick brand.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, yes, it's a cool spot for sure. And then Alex Score, I think he's their LSM, but he probably plays a little bit of both. He's at a Division 2 somewhere, I believe. So both of those guys are really good pulls. But I think for me, the key stat here is they get their top 5 scores back from last year. So Cullen Britz, 45 points. Bennett Brown, 36 points. Evan Weatherford, 29 points. William Maleka, 18. Cam Johnson, 17. So those last two are a little less, but all of them are 25s. So these guys have been playing together since they were 10 U's or whatever, probably. And now they have 2 years together, junior year, senior year, 5 guys on offense that can score. It looks pretty balanced to me. Now they're upperclassmen. They're not sophomores trying to beat seniors off the dodge. They're going to be athletically there. Not that they weren't great athletes before. Benilde maybe gets 5 guys back, but like not a lot of teams can say they get their 5 leading scorers back.
No, this is rare. You get your elite 2025 goalie back as well.
Yes.
Your face-off guy who's going 50-50 as a freshman last year is a 2026.
Yep.
Obviously, you get him back. This is so interesting. I'm so interested to see what Wayzata can do this year. And the most, when I look back at their last season, when I look back at the season last year, when I look at the schedule and I go through the scores, there's one score that stands out to me most, because this is against a team in the next section that we'll get to, who's not supposedly, because I think that they're going to be there. And they could go all the way. And they had a 1-goal game against them, and they're both kind of have these good, if not great, young cores. They had a 1-goal game against Edina.
Yeah.
And both teams look like they're bringing everything back. Is the Lake Conference back?
Yeah, I think the Lake Conference is going to be really good this year. For the next 2 years, I think. Not that it wasn't like it's never been bad. I think it's always been solid, but I think the next 2 years, Lake Conference is going to be really good. Just across the board. But Wayzata, they have guys at key positions that are coming back. I saw them play live last year, and this is going to sound really stupid, but like I kind of felt like it just felt like there was something there. I went to actually watch them play Rosemount, and Rosemount had a really strong senior class last year, so it felt like to me like Wayzata had the skills and like there was something there, but just couldn't athletically hang for 48 minutes. That's kind of like what it felt like to me, and Rosemount just kind of out athleted them as the game wore on. I don't know. I think now these guys are juniors, and like you got a Fogo, you got a goalie that's steady, you got some good pulls. It seems like they got players everywhere. They could be a really good team for the next 2 years.
I love it. On to the next team on this list, at least, a team with a new head coach noted, a team that has been, I think we've been a fan of this team. DTA Nation has been a fan of this team, this program. They've made noise. Armstrong. Yeah. They seem to always just be making noise. Obviously, really hard section with private schools and massive public schools. I think this is a fair spot for them at 4. But they return again, another team with some young studs last year. A team that, however, lost a big group of seniors. So it's kind of, I don't know what to think when I look at this team, but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I am a fan of this team. Last year was awesome. They were, I would have to say, I think Coach Beach even mentioned this maybe in the Discord or on Twitter or something, but like they were the biggest surprise team last year, 12-3. I think they've always been scrappy and good, but last year they had a great team. They did lose like 3 or 4 pretty high level seniors, so that will be interesting to see how they replace it. And they have a new coach. But they do get some guys back, a couple guys on defense, Aiden Robb, Burke Whitmers. Jamison Essen had 43 points last year. He's a senior. And then probably one of the best 26s in the state, Jack Olson, had 63 points last year as a freshman. And so, he's probably going to be kind of the guy at this point moving forward. Just a special athlete, really good lacrosse player, but just a guy that can win his matchup, get to the goal and score. And then they have another 2026 Brady Northrup who contributed quite a bit last year as well. But they gotta figure out the goalie situation. They lost I believe Xavier Wells was a third team All-State or All-State honorable mention goalie last year. So that's a big loss that they're going to have to figure out. And I think he was a key piece to their success last year, is getting them to jump from a good scrappy 7-5 or 8-7 team to being a 12-3 team.
Another team, Rogers, a team that's sorry, a community that is growing massively. A hockey town. I hear from my kind of hockey sources that that their hockey team is doing fairly well and getting better and whatnot. So, will that? I guess I don't know what the hockey to lacrosse, if there's a correlation there, but it seems like there might be in some cases.
Yeah.
Rogers, a team that has kind of been the mix. We've had some Roger players at 36. We've had some nice players come out of the community. It sounds like they rattle off a bunch of wins in kind of like the final stretch there. Rogers. Could they be a sleeper? Could they muck it up? Maybe upset somebody at some point.
Yeah, they were a team I was high on last year. They had an interesting situation with basically just they had an interesting season last year. I'm gonna pull up their schedule, but they started the season with a forfeit to Anoka, so that's a rough start. Then they lost to Champlin Park and Wayzata. They beat Andover and then lost to Armstrong. So they started 1-4. Then they rattled off 5 straight. A loss to Maple Grove, a win against Totino Grace, who had a pretty good year last year. So they won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of their final 7, or 6 of 7, and then they lost their regular season finale to Centennial. So 6 of their last 8 regular season games they win, and then they lost to Wayzata in the sections in their first round. So they kind of turned it around last year, and I was like, okay, maybe Rogers can go on a run. It ended up not happening. They did lose a bunch of seniors. They have a pretty good face-off guy in the 2025 class. And then it looked like, just a couple other guys that contributed. But they do get their goalie back. They get Brady Mene, 25 points last year. I don't know. I don't know if they're a this year team. They might be a year away, a couple years away. I think they got a pretty good group of youth coming up. So, they're kind of my 5 right now, just I think for lack of other options at this point. But I think there is potential for them to be a good team in the future. And this will be kind of the start of this new wave of kids.
As a town, I haven't spent a lot of time. I have dined in Wayzata. I don't believe I've dined in Rogers.
Yeah.
Any good food if you're going to go coach in Rogers?
I'm putting
you on the spot with this.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I've dined in Rogers. I know I've driven through it on the way up to the Central Lakes area and Nisswa and all that kind of stuff, and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know if I've dined. I thought maybe there was like a Maynard's up there somewhere. If you're a fan of that, but I think it is, though, a growing community. It's kind of that next ring of suburbs to the north.
Right.
Northwest, and
I'm always looking
I
for dining recommendations. So if you've got a Rogers
yeah.
spot, if I
So
find myself in Rogers
did you,
coaching,
did you say you're going to Grand Forks tomorrow, right?
I'm going to Grand Forks tomorrow.
And you're
Tomorrow morning.
and correct me if I'm wrong, you take 94 all
I
the
think
way
all
up
the way.
there.
I think
All the
all the
way up.
way.
And I believe Rogers is kind of right off 94. Like it's up. You're going in that direction. Maybe there's a spot you could check out and report back.
I'll look around. I'll look
Yeah,
around. I'll look out the window. I'm not gonna. I don't think I'm gonna stop that early. I'm gonna try to get further north before I, make a stop. I think, but
fair enough. Fair enough.
I'll throw my head out, not out the windshield, but I'll look out, and
Yeah.
see if anything catches my eye when
Yeah.
I drive past Rogers. It's just not a community that
Yeah.
I've spent much time in, and we haven't played them, or Lakers haven't played them. So
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of the last team, I think of note here for me is Blake. Mainly because they get the DTA bump, the
they get
DTA
a
Summit bump. They had their
they
whole
get a
staff there.
huge, massive, if not the biggest DTA coaches summit
They
bump.
had
We got
6
we got a
coaches there.
speaker. We've got the whole staff there. There's people I know, but people I didn't even know that were on the staff came, and I was like, oh hey, what's going on? Oh, I'm on Blake. So Blake has like half the coaches in the state. I feel like
Yeah.
on their staff.
You know,
Um,
and I think it's no surprise that, they're going through some lean years with Blake, and they're kind of transitioning the culture from, what it was when they got there, and some new guys coming in and whatever. But I will say, like, I appreciate that, they're not just jumping ship to another program. Um, they're not just like, oh, we had a bad season last year, so we're just going to show up on April 1st and like whatever, collect our paycheck. Like they're putting in the effort to, figure out ways to make this program better. And if slash when Blake gets back to where they used to be, um, that staff will have earned it, and it
yeah,
won't be it won't be luck, it will just be because, like, they're putting in the time, and they do care about their program. They have a couple really good players to build around. Sam Hardy, he's a senior, does everything. Guy's a competitor. I think he plays man up as a pole. He'd probably hop between the pipes if they needed him to, but they have a pretty good goalie. He was a freshman last year, so they're going to have him, as stability between the pipes for the next couple of years. So and it looks like they got another guy, this Soren Reyes, is another really athletic kid that is going to maybe be taking the jump and getting more time this year on varsity. So I think, it's probably not this year, but a team that kind of like a Rogers that maybe trending in the right direction and could potentially be in the mix in the section in a couple years.
yeah. No, I think if the staff right can continue to grind it out, continue like the things that they're doing, like yes, they came to the down the LA Coaches Summit and they brought everybody, and that's awesome. But talking to the staff and hearing what else that they're doing as a staff, um, I was surprised, jealous, and impressed. Like they are they're doing some really cool things, and they're really into it. Like they love lacrosse. Like I know the staff is all in.
Yep.
They're doing the things.
Agreed.
Just shout out to them. Like I'm kind of jealous with some of the things that they get to do, or not that they get to do, that they're doing. Like anyone can
Yeah.
do it, right? Anyone can do these things. Like it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's sure there's some money investment, but like whatever. Like it's more of just a time investment, right? Like that's what normally holds people back, and they're putting in the time,
Yeah.
and they're
For
showing up, and they're doing the thing. So, shout out to the Blake staff. I don't know what else to say. Like,
Yeah.
props to you
No,
guys.
I agree with you. I think we need to make our picks.
Oh yeah, we didn't even make girls picks.
I know. I realized we kind of just jumped right in.
I totally. Oh yeah. All right. Let me think here. back to the girls.
Do you want to just start with boys since it's fresh in your mind, and then we'll go girls?
Okay, so boys off the top of my head. So it starts with Benilde, right? Like for me,
Sure.
like they've won it the last 6 times. For you, not like at this point, for somebody to take that one spot, you got to beat them. So Benilde right now, um, it is the one. Man, so I'm stuck. I'm stuck on this 1 goal game against Edina Wyzetta, and because of that, like, and Maple Grove though, like they got Ricky P. So like I'm the
Yeah.
I don't know which team to give the two. Like I almost want to give them like 2A 2B and like give them both give them the 2 and then just give Armstrong the 4. Actually no, not Armstrong. Blake the 4. Blake is my 4, and I can I put a tie? Is that allowed in the graphic?
I don't think I was allowed to do
No.
ties last year. You
Okay.
forced me to pick.
Oh, my gut's saying Wyzetta. I have no clue why. They've got better food. They've got
Okay.
better dining options than Wyzetta. And that 1 goal game against Edina is just screaming at my gut. So I'm taking Wyzetta 2, Maple Grove 3. I'm sorry, Ricky P. I'm sorry, Monmouth. I I'm sorry. I think Ricky P is going to make me regret this. But there's something, my gut's screaming Wyzetta.
Yeah, I honestly I was debating the same thing as you. You know, it really is 2A 2B. I'm gonna flip it though. I'm gonna go Benilde 1. I'm gonna go Maple Grove 2. I think Ricky's a difference maker, but I think it comes down to just that game experience. Like they've kind of been there, that's where I'm giving them the edge. But Wyzetta is a very close 3. I don't know what my confidence level on this has been my least confident pick thus far. So Wyzetta, people, don't kill me for this, please. But you're the 3 right now, and I'm gonna go Armstrong 4.
Okay, on to the girls. Kind of similar story. However, I think they're one like kind of more clearly, or not more clearly. Benilde's the one. They've got 2 studs on offense who we've talked about them. Benilde's Benilde's the one this year for sure. However, I think there's teams that are going to be nipping at their heels. I think things. So I think something weird is going to happen in this section tournament, especially on the girls' side. I think I could see it on both sides, but this girls' side, if you think this 2A 2B thing on the boys' side, um, I'm trying to buy myself time talking through this. Benilde's the one, but something weird is going to happen. Um, at 2, the newcomer into the section. Um,
I was gonna go here, but
I'm going
you beat me
Champlin.
to it.
I'm
Okay.
going Yeah, you made me go first. I'm going Champlin
Yeah,
because their
I like
social
that pick.
media is elite. They got and then the one thing that bumped them to 2 for me is the goalie. They have their goalie back,
Yeah.
and these other teams, it's a question mark. So Champlin, for those reasons, are number 2. Maple Grove, though, again, I'm splitting hairs here. Maple Grove is 3, and Wyzetta, um, it's not a bump. You're at 4. I wish I could put you higher. I want to put you higher. Again, I think Wyzetta might upset at somebody at any point. And Wyzetta might end up, come actual tournament time, might be higher. So I expect big things from Wyzetta. I think Hopkins, go down the list here. Things could get interesting. However, I'm confident in that top 4. I trust the sources. Um,
So you got BSM, Champlin, Maple Grove, Wyzetta.
yes,
Okay. Um.
with the caveat that something weird is going to happen
Yeah.
in this section tournament. Like I don't, the rankings going in could be all over the place. Coming out, it could be a 5 seed coming out. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
All right. I think this could be either genius move or complete idiot, clueless lacrosse coach. I'm going Champlin Park 1.
Whoa, you're just trying to outdo me.
I'm going BSM 2, going Wayzata 3, and Maple Grove
Wow.
4.
And I don't hate it. Like, the thing is, I don't hate it.
Yeah, and honestly, you could just shuffle all those up and throw a whole new 1 through 4, and I'd probably go, "Yeah, that
It
could
could happen.
definitely happen."
It could happen.
And I'm with you. I don't know if we need to qualify our picks, but it is the Champlin Park. They return a lot, and their goalie. Wayzata also returns their goalie and a good handful of players. Maple Grove probably like also returns a lot, but they did lose more than everybody else, including their goalie. So that's the only reason they got bumped
Yeah.
down. They could have the best JV team in the entire state, and I have no idea that's coming up. So, jokes on us if that's true. But this is going to be a fun section. I think on both the boys and
I
the
agree.
girls, but for sure on the girls' side, there's four top 10 caliber teams in this section.
For me, Benilde stays one. I truly think Benilde will come out of this section because of their two top players. However, I think there's going to be an upset somewhere, somehow, some way. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. I think my mind is blown right now. I think that's all we got. Thanks for tuning in to the Lucy episode,
Yeah.
the Lucy Pod, Section 5. I think this one's going to get weird come late May.
Yeah. I agree. Next week, section 6, another competitive section.